All right, welcome back in the game, and we have lots in store for you. We'll now go straight to the world of football. We, of course, Saudi Arabia, a talk of the town. They're signing top players from the Premier League. Before now, it was Cristiano Ronaldo, and then it moved on. We saw Karim Benzema also being signed from Spain, and now in England, it's all about the Chelsea players. As we have interesting players, Edward Mendy, Kalidou Koulibaly. You talk about, of course, the likes of Ruben Neves of Wolverhampton Wanderers also moving straight to the Middle East from the Premier League clubs. Now, lots of questions have been asked. Why is this happening? And does this spending power pose a threat to big European clubs? Now, joining us to analyze this transfer market trend is the Pan-African football commentator, Andrew Olsson, joins us this morning. Andrew Olsson, good morning to you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Favour. Thank you for having me on today.
All right, welcome. Let's talk about the trend right now in the world of football, when it has to do with the Saudi Arabian clubs coming for top players in Europe, especially the Premier League clubs. I mean, we've seen Ruben Neves. We've also seen talking about the Chelsea players being linked to Saudi Arabia. I mean, this is the trend. Lots of questions being put in place as to why this is happening. I mean, can you talk about what we are seeing now in the world of football? Saudi Arabia looking at the Premier League as a point of getting players. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think Saudi Arabia is really looking to make their imprint on the world, and what better way to do it than through the world's most popular sport? I think what we're seeing here is that the Saudi Pro League is looking to compete on a higher level. And to do that, you want to bring in the highest regarded players, the most famous players. And with a club like Chelsea, who are eager to sell at the moment, as well as in the English Premier League, that's where the most recognizable players are. And so that's where Saudi Arabia is looking to boost their popularity, is through acquiring players from there.
All right, let's talk about Ronaldo. I mean, he left for Saudi Arabia some months ago, and nobody said, everyone is happy. Oh, it's a big move. It's a very interesting move for Ronaldo. Now it's all about Chelsea. 4 players on the radar of Saudi Arabian clubs, and a lot of persons are now talking. I mean, why this? Why that? Why is it a source of concern for Chelsea? Don't you fully aware that when it had to do with Ronaldo, we didn't have any, complaint. It was all about celebrations.
Yeah, well, with Chelsea, it's about making financial fair play regulations, and after such a disastrous season in the English Premier League last season, you're seeing them looking to take away the players who maybe did not contribute or meet expectations, and those players, a player like Kalidou Koulibaly, N'Golo Kante, who was unfortunately his season was ruined by injury for most of it. These are players who kind of fit that mold for what Saudi Arabia is looking for. And at the same time, it's something where Chelsea can meet their financial fair play regulations by offloading these players.
All right, let's look at the massive exodus of players from the Premier League to Saudi Arabia. Once upon a time, it was Chinese Super League, and now the Saudi Arabian League getting players from England. Should it be a cause of worry for the Premier League clubs?
Well, I was looking at comments from the UEFA president, Alexander Shafarin, and he made a good point, is that we've seen this before with countries who are trying to make their imprint, like you mentioned, Favour, China. But in the end, if you really want to overtake, the European clubs, the world superpowers when it comes to football, what's key is developing your own players. This sort of strategy of purchasing players who are towards the end of their career is certainly a good short-term move for boosting popularity. But in the end, all the most famous players, the most talented players, they're going to want to play in UEFA competition and the UEFA Champions League, because those competitions are still highly regarded, the most highly regarded in the world. And it's going to take a lot of time for a league like the Saudi Pro League or any country that's looking to boost their footballing status to overtake these competitions in terms of popularity and prestige.
All right. Okay, let's take a trip now to Africa. Khalidou Koulibaly to Saudi Arabia, Hakim Ziyech to Saudi Arabia, Edward Mendy also to Saudi Arabia. These are key players for their respective countries, Senegal and Morocco. Now, the Nations Cup is going to be next year in Cote d'Ivoire. These players are key members of their team going to Saudi Arabia. Do you think it will affect their football, knowing fully well that they have a major tournament in Africa come next year?
Well, I don't think national team managers like Aliou Cisse of Senegal will be too concerned. I think there's certainly something to be gained from competing at the highest levels in football and translating that to your national team form. But these players are so well established. You know, Ziyech performed remarkably well at the FIFA World Cup despite lacking regular playing time with Chelsea. And I think, you know, as long as these players are satisfied, as long as they're playing regularly, I think that's a higher priority than necessarily the level of competition, because we know what these players are capable of. And as long as they're playing regularly, that's the most important thing, I feel.
All right, and finally for me, pundits are talking, especially in England. They're talking about the move of players to Saudi Arabia. Lots of them feel that Saudi Arabia want to be amongst the top 5 leagues in the world. I mean, do you agree with them?
Yeah, when you see somebody like Gary Neville coming out and saying maybe the Premier League needs to do something about these transfers, it certainly indicates that there is a bit of a source of concern from the Premier League with how the Saudi Pro League and Saudi Arabia is trying to find these more prestigious players. But I think it's certainly something that is going to take time. As we saw with China, it did not work out because it just costs so much money to maintain this standard and keep buying up these players. So I think there's certainly going to be some curiosity to see how this works out for Saudi Arabian football. But at the same time, you know, it's a whole lot of let's see what happens at this point, because historically this approach hasn't necessarily worked, but it seems like the Saudis have a lot of money behind this and a lot of commitment behind this. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next several years, next decade, and see if they can stick with this plan.
All right, Andrew, before I let you go, what club do you support?
I would say Favour. The United States national team is my number one team, but when it comes to a club, if you want to go with the Premier League, I'm going with Fulham. They've always played a lot of Americans on their team, so I have a soft spot in my heart for them.
All right, the Anthony Robinsons, lots of players in Fulham. But I'd like to ask you, that means your club is not threatened by the Saudi Arabian clubs right now, right?
Absolutely not. I don't think they're coming for Fulham anytime soon. Maybe Mitrovic, but I think we're good for now.
All right. And maybe they'll come for your defender, Tosin, who is a Nigerian. Maybe, who knows? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew Olsson, for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anytime, Favour. Thank you.